Good morning.
Good morning.
Pura Vida, real life, pure life. Welcome to this week's Dharma Talk here at beautiful Bali Rica in beautiful Costa Rica. This morning we have some new equipment. I have never used a mic before, but we're going to hope it works out and that we can record again. This morning, Lisa Virtue is going to start our session. And so I'm going to turn this over to her. And she gets the mic, too.
I promise not to sing.
Oh, thank God. Don't ask us to sing.
So today we're going to do a bit of a guided meditation just to help everybody arrive in their bodies in the present moment. And while you're still in that, I'll read Ruthie's passage that she has, and then I'll cue you to open your eyes. All right?
3 minutes silence.
Oh, yeah. Can you pass my phone, please? 3 minutes, huh? Okay. Let's start by closing our eyes. And take 3 long, deep, slow breaths. And just exhale all the tension and all the frenetic energy of arriving. Now we're going to do a body scan starting with our toes. So bringing your awareness to your toes, feeling the sensation of how your toes are right now. And with the magic of your thoughts and your intention, you're requesting that that attention relaxes your toes. So it's like a beam of relaxation. And we're going to start moving our beam upwards, so moving through our feet, letting that awareness, the tangible sensation, invite relaxing. Keep that scanner moving up through the ankles and into your lower legs. And up into the knees. And through the upper legs. Allowing the legs to start to feel heavier. Allowing gravity to hold them, to support them. Scanning up through the pelvis and the hips. Letting the muscles relax. Up into your lower abdomen and lower back. A full 360 degrees, the sides, the back, the front, and the middle. Releasing any gripping or tension. Moving up your torso, the belly, up into the chest, the upper back, your lungs. Imagine they're releasing all that has been held. Up into your shoulders and your neck. Here where we hold so much tension, worry, fear. You could imagine that it's just melting away, gravity taking it. Down the arms, all the way to the fingertips. And again, up the neck into your head, the back of your head, your ears, and then all the parts of your face, your mouth, your eyes, your forehead. Let them relax. Let your jaw open if it needs to. Relax the crown of your head. And like a wave of peace, or a waterfall of peace coming down, cascading over your entire being, washing out the bottom, taking any leftover tension with it. And now keeping your awareness inward, you'll sit for a moment in silence, just feeling our peacefulness, being present. The world cannot reclaim him or lead him astray, nor can the poisoned net of desire hold him. He is awake. The gods watch over him.
Continue.
He is awake and finds joy in the stillness of meditation and in the sweetness of surrender. Hard it is to be born. Hard it is to live. Harder still to hear of the way. And hard to rise, follow, and awake. Yet the teaching is simple. Do what is right. Be pure. At the end of the way is freedom. Till then, patience. Take a deep breath. And open your eyes.
Thank you, Ruth. Just what I needed to settle down. Just what I needed to settle down. All right. This week, we're continuing our talks on the very first teaching given by the Buddha after his awakening under the Bodhi tree in India some 2,600 years ago. Known as the Four Noble Truths, this fundamental, this essential, basic structural teaching is as resilient and as life-giving and life-affirming as it was 2,600 years ago. And all of us can benefit on this day from hearing the words that have been so good for mankind for all these centuries. Now the Buddha, well, let's put it this way. A lot of people, when they first hear of the Dharma, find it something of a bummer, a downer, because it begins with suffering. As we just heard in the talk, life is hard, birth is hard, we suffer, etc., etc. So they hear that, but they don't hear the second part of the sentence, which on the Four Noble Truths is the cessation of suffering. So they don't realize that the reason for the observation of suffering and for the examination of the causes, the analysis of the suffering, is to reach the point of the Noble Truth, the third Noble Truth, which is the one we're going to talk about today. And as that little reading said, it's difficult sometimes to follow this. But the teachings themselves are very simple. And I'm going to try and keep it simple today so that everybody, as you hear this little story that illustrates this, and we talk about it a little bit, you can apply it to yourself, like doing a body scan, only this is kind of a mind scan, to see how it applies to you and whether it can transform for you some suffering in your life so that it becomes liberation. The way to joy. So we have Four Noble Truths. The first is the truth of suffering, that in life there is suffering. Okay. This word in Sanskrit is dukkha, and it really is closer to meaning dissatisfactory, unsatisfactory, than it is to suffering. But it's a spectrum that goes from the very mild, perhaps irritation, annoyance, unsatisfactoriness, all the way up to, oops, I'm scared of this thing.
You're doing fine.
Okay, thank you. Everybody be patient with me. We talked about patience too. Okay, all the way up to excruciating pain and agony. So that's the first one. Nobody escapes some suffering in life. Even if everything is perfect, you have to deal with losses of, perhaps your friends and family and your pets and other assorted ills. The second Noble Truth is the analysis. And the Buddha comes up with 5 major causes for suffering. Craving, grasping, clinging, ignorance, and delusion. We go into these a lot in our talks, so I'm just putting them out there as a review for the moment, because now we come to the wonderful truth of the cessation of suffering. The third truth is put forth by the Buddha in a statement that really has caught the attention of a lot of people over the centuries and has changed a lot of lives. And the statement is this: Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Now, we all know that in law, there is pain and there is suffering. And if we sue somebody for restitution, for an injury or what have you, you can sue for pain and suffering. There is a division in the law. There is also a division in our own lives. Because pain is something you have little or no control over. It's physical. Suffering, on the other hand, comes from the mind. And in Buddhism, mind and heart are one word. So your emotions and your thoughts are where suffering comes from. You have a choice. You literally can be freed from suffering. And it takes a lot of doing. In some cases, it's very easy. But the Buddha illustrated this with a really nice little story. And this is his story. It's called The Story of Two Arrows, and I know a lot of you know it already. He says, suppose you're walking through the forest, and suddenly, totally unexpectedly, you're shot in the shoulder with an arrow. And it's very painful. And so your first thought and your overwhelming thought is just get it out. Get it out of there. So you remove it and you start to perhaps take care of it. When a second arrow slams into your shoulder in exactly the same spot, and it really rips the wound open this time. Now the first arrow is pain. You didn't see it coming. You don't know where it came from. It's like life. It just happens. We have economic loss. We have loss of family members and pets. Things happen. You know, like that bumper sticker. Yes, happens. And we can't do anything about it. You have no control over that. You didn't ask for it. It just happened. That's pain. And it's in the body. The second arrow is the arrow of suffering. And this follows the first one. The moment you say, who did this to me? And when I find him, I want revenge. I want to know every detail of this, and he is going to court. I will take him for everything he owns in this world. Now you've created suffering, and that is a wound that doesn't heal. The pain will clear up. The wound will heal. But in the second wound, there is just a festering that never stops. It gets started, and then you lose control of it. But it was self-inflicted. So can everybody see the difference? And also recognize that there's an overlap. Many times we'll say, she suffers from migraine headaches, for example. That's a pain, and it's caused by who knows what, but it is physical, but we call it suffering. So the two are sort of interchangeable, and you have to make the division in your own mind. I think the little talk reading we had from the Dhammapada at the beginning says that the teachings are simple. Is that simple enough that you can understand that it is not pain that is the problem, as big a problem as it may be in and of itself? It's not the real problem. The real problem is the suffering that we bring to ourselves by not knowing how to control our own mind. Everybody got that? Now, if you would, I would like for you to think a little bit about that word patience. We had, I think, a very good talk a few weeks ago. And it was about patience and the role patience plays. And I actually brought that little talk because it mentions, in the meantime, be patient. The one we used was the arrow, in this case, of hatred. And the saying goes, and I think I can remember it, in this world, hatred never ceased by hatred. Only love can dispel hatred. And so everybody said, yeah, they understood that only love could dispel hatred. But the next question kind of threw the group, and that is, okay, if that's the case, how do you get from understanding that to acting it out in life, to making it part of how you behave and how you think and how you operate? Because hatred is a very powerful emotion. It's a very painful emotion, physically actually. There's an overlap there. And the answer to that question of how can love actually overcome and something as overwhelmingly strong as hatred in your everyday operations? And the answer, according to the Buddha, is patience. And patience is said by the Buddha to be the highest virtue. In Mahayana Buddhism, patience is the supreme paramita, which is high characteristics. Because patience gives you the pause that you need to let go, to think things through, to cope with your own feelings, and to strategize. So if we're dealing with suffering in our lives, time out. Just as this reading says, in the meantime, be patient. Because the difficulties will resolve themselves with applied thought, a genuine emotion, and learning the teachings, and not expecting them to necessarily be immediate. Now, what I'd like to do is just leave the talk today at that point and ask, so that we don't get off in the weeds anymore, can you apply those three teachings? The first two, which is the observation and the analysis of suffering, with the third, which is the cessation of suffering, with the teachings of patience, love, and all the other teachings we've gone through, and actually apply them to something that you're coping with either right now or that's coming up in the future or that you've just handled. And I'm going to give this thing over to Jeff because it scares me. So here we are. Okay, somebody hop in here.
I have an example.
Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
So,
Are we gonna try our little microphone thing, Sharon?
Good.
We're experimenting with technology here today.
When this isn't here.
Which
So-
has completely thrown me.
No, you did just fine.
Okay.
So, comments, questions, illustrations of what this would look like, and Sharon's gonna pass the mic to you so that everybody can hear you.
We'll see.
We'll see what happens.
no.
You have to put it.
Help
you
me
put
out
it
here
right up
today,
here.
guys.
Testing.
I got kind of rattled by all this.
Oh, turn it on. Hello.
Oh.
Funky.
I think we shouldn't use that. I can tell it's gonna be funky. Okay, Lisa, go ahead, talk loud. Thank you, Sharon.
We're just run into challenges or just situations with border and residency and all of that. I don't need the details. However, it was a surprise and new information, and at the moment a little bit overwhelming with what the future is going to be, because we didn't have answers. We need more information. And so right away my mind was going into all the possibilities, every possibility, and I recognized I was starting to go down that rabbit hole of worry and fear, and so I caught it, and I'm like, I'm causing my suffering here. There's, so I'm backing up and like, okay, what do I need to do? Like, what actions can I take? What can I find out now and do those? And then leave myself, like, don't get wrapped up in it until the next stages, they'll unfold. And in the meantime, don't cause my own suffering. If I worry and I'm in fear, it doesn't help the situation. And it can be hard at times, but I do catch it, and I, do a little breathing or something to remind myself that I can only do what I can do, and it will all work out, and no matter what outcome, I'm going to be fine and wonderful, and life will give me beautiful things. I just can't picture what they are. But I ended up here without ever imagining it, so who knows what life holds. So just,
Good. It's a good illustration,
Yeah.
Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Things that you're powerless about,
Yeah.
and not attaching to those.
Yeah.
Okay.
True.
Yes.
My husband is like the most Buddha thinking guy in the whole world, although he doesn't do anything about it. But it's just natural for him. Nothing stirs him. So like, we can, find out tomorrow that we've lost all our money. His reaction would be, what are we going to do about it? And
Good
so
question.
I've kind of
It's
come
a
to that
major
place
question.
as well, where I just think, we've had things happen here recently that's just like, whoa, okay, what are we going to do about it? So most of the time, Rob and I are able to do that. But what I can't do is do things that come up quickly, that for instance, if someone pisses me off so I can't go there. Is this the same thing?
That's the first arrow. They have some action,
Okay.
and it wounds your shoulder.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. You're getting pissed off about
Yeah.
it is the second arrow.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
That the way that I'm understanding what Ruthie's
Oh, yeah,
saying. Does that make
that's
sense,
what I
Linda?
said. I just
Okay,
not
thank you.
talking
Yes,
too
yes.
loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Someone else illustration in your life
Can you
about this.
apply patience to just wait a little while and not do anything? This
Not
is
usually.
this is a problem I've had all my life, is dealing with impatience. Yeah. Dealing with impatience.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to cultivate, is some patience.
Yeah.
And of course, when we were talking about the first two being observation and analysis, the third is realization, and the fourth is the Eightfold Path, and that's the action. This also sometimes is described as a doctor's situation, which is that you see the symptoms, you diagnose the causes, you apply the prognosis, or you come to a prognosis, and then you have the prescriptions to get well. And that's what we have here. But you have to make that decision between what is just plain pain. It hurts like the devil. But what are you going to do about it? Which was the question. Now, I'm going to call on a couple of friends next door here, because I know they've had to deal with, you've had to deal with family, you know, and that's a common problem.
What do you want me to say about that?
How did you deal with it? And what was the pain and suffering for you?
It had a lot of pain and suffering. Well, it had a lot of, I'm still dealing with it actually. But I think the best thing that I did was to realize that I was powerless on changing the situation. And I couldn't change my mother, and I couldn't change, the only thing I could change was my reaction.
With that?
Was my reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the only thing I could change.
That's what you did to pull the second arrow out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Anybody else have aging parents? That can be difficult.
Oh, Marjorie has something to say.
Where's Marjorie?
Go ahead.
Up here.
Can she reach this?
No, we can't. Why don't you send it to me? I got it.
Your
Okay.
story's
Go ahead.
crazy. When I first came to some of these talks, and you started immediately talking, this word suffering came up, and it was like a trigger for me, the word suffer. And I didn't recognize it right away, but I was like, do I really want to go and talk about suffering? I mean, so that was the first part of kind of what's with the word. And then I realized, you're talking about the doctor stuff, then I realized just a month ago that I was really struggling with the word suffer because I was a very active athletic person, and I fell walking a dog, or I was launched walking a dog and took my weight on my shoulder, did some PT, couldn't figure it out, went to the doctor. He was supposed to explore in there because the MRI didn't show anything. He was supposed to go in and see what it was, and then we were going to, I thought, figure it out. Well, when I came to, and then went back, I think a week later, because I was pretty loopy when I first came to, went back a week later, I said, so what's the prognosis? And this is exactly what he said to me, this orthopedic surgeon. He said, well, I found a little tear, so I cut it out. I was like, you cut me out? I mean, you cut it out? I was surprised he did something, was the first thing. But then I said, what's the prognosis? And he said, you will suffer, and he used the word suffer. He said, you will suffer from surgically induced arthritis in that shoulder for the rest of your life.
Oh. My
Oh.
goodness.
And I,
Lawsuit.
well,
No, but
I
I'm
was
saying that.
so
Yeah.
speechless. I was so
That's-
dumbfounded for so many reasons. So I did the patience thing. You know, I was a good girl. You respect the doctors, the lawyers, and the Indian chiefs. So I didn't get mouthy. And I was so shocked. And I went home and I said, I'll do the PT or whatever. But the word suffer kept coming up to me. And then I started getting mad, getting really mad. And I said, okay, what do I do? And I've never been a litigious person. And it didn't seem like it was going to work. And I said, I'm just going to work harder. So I put it on me. I said, but I kept hearing the suffer, the suffer, the suffer. So I have, God, I'm feeling emotional. I have suffered for 8.5 years now. And I can't play pickleball with my husband. I can't ski because of my arm. I can't, I can't reach. I couldn't comb my hair forever. And I kept hearing the suffer, the suffer. And I said, listening to Dharma and our talks all along, about a month ago, my husband looks at me and he said, why do you continue to suffer again. This is too weird. This is a word keeps coming up. He said, we're going back to the States to get my hip replaced. He said, why don't you, I said, I don't want to be cut. I don't want to, he said, you don't have to. Why don't you go to somebody else and see what your options are? So I've started researching stem cell therapy and and I am going to see an orthopedic surgeon, but I'm also going to see an oculist and some other things. I'm not suffering anymore because I'm doing something.
Uh-oh.
And the anger, the hate I had towards that physician. About 2 years ago, I went back because I was going to see him again, and he wasn't at Johns Hopkins anymore. I'm thinking, aha, they found out about you, got you out of there, so nobody else is going to get hurt. But it's just interesting what you're saying. You talked about patience. I tried the patience thing, and it wouldn't. That didn't help me. What helped me
Not
was
so sure.
well, maybe not. But so
Because
you're saying the
I
patience
hear
brought me
your
to the
focus.
action?
It did.
You
It
think
did.
so?
Yes.
I hear focus. You've said very little about actual physical pain that
Yeah.
you were dealing with. What you weren't dealing with. What
So mad at him.
you were, well, that's what you weren't dealing with. Well, that's the suffering part. You were dealing with the pain.
Yeah.
But you weren't dealing very well with the suffering.
Exactly.
So that's why we're saying if you can understand and actually act upon this third truth, you'll find a lot of freedom that comes with giving up the suffering part.
Ruthie, can I add one thing about the
Sure,
suffering part?
please.
We've talked about this, but some of you are new. That the suffering part is in the additional storyline that you
The
tell,
narrative.
the narrative that you add to the story. It takes you off the main path, which is, I have pain. The suffering is when we tell the story about the pain. Is when we tell and we start to draw detours on the main road. And what Ruthie's saying is the way out of suffering is to stay on the main road, and one of the ingredients is patience. And that's how you stay, how you really actually, how you deal with pain, the pain that you have, and how you reduce to the point of zero your suffering. If you become really enlightened about this, it's the storyline that's the problem. Your storyline about this guy did me wrong.
He done me
That's
wrong,
where
so-
your suffering came in.
Totally. You know.
Okay, and so at that point, we're asked to eliminate the storyline. For those of us like me who are storytellers, this is difficult work because I'm an expert at the storyline, and I have to I have to leave that, except for when it's productive in teaching or something like that. But I have to leave the additional storyline. I used to work for churches, 15 years in my early life. They did me wrong. So I used to go by and cuss at those buildings. There was my suffering. Was there pain? Yes, there was. That thing, and that it stuck with me and didn't deal with it. Now I was suffering. Only when I replaced that with loving kindness as I drove by the buildings was I healed from that.
What about, Jeff talks a lot about detached involvement, and it's with patience. I don't think this is on.
It's not, you're good.
It's on.
Is it? Sorry, guys. It's with that detachment is only possible with the cultivation of patience, because the detachment comes from being able to step back. So what I'm trying to get across is that if you can differentiate, discriminate, or whatever the word is, in your thinking, the difference between what is the actual pain, which you may have to treat as best you can, and what is the suffering, and can you step away from it? Can you practice with patience the detachment that lets you see it for what it really is? Okay?
Someone else. Yeah, Diane, go ahead.
I don't know if I can put these thoughts together.
I don't know if people can hear you after.
You talk loud.
Um,
It's okay.
when I think of the first arrow and the second arrow, for me, the suffering is much more painful. If you take that out of the equation, the pain really doesn't hurt that much. I mean, I'm not diminishing, you know, the,
No.
the pain does
It
hurt,
is the
but-
lesser of the two sufferings.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to kind of, my biggest second arrow is self-judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to put things in perspective from my background. And my training is medical, and the way we approach things is we soap people. We look at things subjectively. So the patient tells us, you know, how are you feeling today, or what hurts, or whatever. And you look at things objectively. So you examine them and get the real facts, and then you assess and you plan. It's very easy for me to sort out subjective and objective when I'm looking at anybody's medical problem.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at myself and how that plays out in terms of the
The suffering.
suffering and the self-judgment, I think I lost it. Can anybody else finish that thought?
No, I think only you can.
Maybe next
I
week.
know where you're going with it.
Okay, where am I
Being,
going?
well,
Oh,
some of the greatest suffering we have
It's the
is
ego.
not physically painful. It's our judgments,
I
our
can't
criticism.
I can't look objectively at myself because my ego gets in the way.
Yep.
I think I'm the only one who, whatever.
No,
That's done.
you're not the
No,
only
got it.
one.
Got it.
Self-criticism is very painful emotionally, but it isn't painful physically. It's
Right.
only emotionally, and you can do something about it because it's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole point of the third, big point of the third noble truth is that we have choice. We make choices all the time. Now, making choices can be scary because we live in what we call a dualistic world where you have constantly to make decisions. And so you are uncertain whether you've made the right decisions. So again, it's suffering that comes in with self-judgment. Did I do the right thing? Did I say the right thing? Was I rude? Blah, blah, blah. But it's not painful. You understand the difference. And if you can get that difference, it can really help.
Someone else. Yeah, go ahead.
This is just about my personal understanding of what patience is, and in my experience. So I kind of think that you get started at a young age with patterns based on maybe how you were brought up or your experiences, and you start to become the storyteller in that way of drama or looking for things that need to be righted or the injustices. And then when I understood how your thought sort of precedes how you feel about something and then what happens or what comes to you, that's where the patience came for me, because there really had to be this period of absolute silence. Like those stories had to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because people in my life who I would engage with those stories, I just had nothing to say all of a sudden, to the point where they were like, what is wrong with you? But what was wrong with me is I understood that I had to pull back, and some of that was meditation, in which you kind of really, you see the problems as lower, not as above you anymore. But it was just, you had to train yourself into a new vocabulary, a new way of looking at life, a more optimistic way. And it's like, kind of like what you were saying, like you go to that anger so quickly because it's the path you've ridden on so long. And it does take patience to, how do
Takes
I
a
take
lot
the
of
fight
patience.
on this new path, which your husband obviously practices more often, right? He's probably like, it's their problem, I don't worry about it, I don't like the arrows
What are you
fly
gonna do
past
about it?
me, what are you gonna do about it, right? But it's easier for him to just kind of go on that path, whereas you're kind of on this path, right? So, but that patience for me was like just absolute silence to move and start to tell different stories and start to see the world differently, which was like a love and appreciation. And then you realize the power of that, right? Because every time a problem erupts, an equivalent solution comes up, and as soon as you know that with patience and start to look at the solution, or just wait for the solution to come, it's right there. And to me, that was like,
Yeah.
so
It sounds
lovely.
to me like what by that process that you're talking about, that you transform things, the negative storylines.
Yeah.
You transform them into some kind of other positive loop rather than a negative. A lot of us are attracted to negative intimacy loops.
Yeah, because
We get stuck
you
in
know,
a
yeah.
negative pattern and we continue to feed that monster. When you apply patience, silence, introspection, those things, all of a sudden you have the ability to transform that into a positive energy loop.
And I don't think it's necessarily even working with this like mess of clay. It's almost like leaving it, right? Because that's like difficult, right? To try to
Let go.
refabricate that, let
Release.
go, and you don't, you
Release.
see things
Let
differently.
go.
You see different things, right? The world is different. It's just
But it's hard
Good
when
process.
you get in that crack, because I'm totally understanding what you're saying, and bing, light bulbs are going off. But that whole time that I was so mad at that doctor, I also was doing this self-flagellation of, why aren't you suing him? Why aren't you protecting other people from him? Why aren't you, you know? And so my head is just like,
Yeah.
that I didn't even see.
You're creating your suffering.
And I'm
You're creating
prolonging
your
it.
suffering.
I'm
Self-inflicted.
prolonging it, actually.
Most suffering is self-inflicted
Yeah.
and can be worked on.
I've heard a fun analogy was the buffet of life, and you
Right.
and maybe you're, I think you're making a pie, and there's hot sauce on the table of the buffet, and you can focus and say, oh, I wouldn't want hot sauce in my pie, and oh, it would be so terrible if there was hot sauce in my pie, and how did there now there's hot sauce in my pie? How did the hot sauce get in my pie? Because you're just focusing on it. Where if you just leave the hot sauce alone, it won't get in your pie.
You make the pie.
You know, you're choosing.
so you see the hot sauce, but you're not bothered by it being there.
Yeah, it
You
could
know,
be there. It
It's
just
like
exists.
you don't, you can just let it
You don't need to
Change
put it in
those.
your.
until you need it.
Patterns.
Brad,
Maybe
you
I-
got something you want to say?
We face this,
Not at the moment.
this problem every.
Look, John, hold on here.
We
Okay,
sort
John.
of face these problems
No, we
every
can't get
day.
it. We can't get it to him. It's not.
You know, when you're faced with,
Pick up.
you're thinking, I have to send this email now, and it's gonna be unpleasant, and I'm not, and somebody's gonna get upset by it. Or I have to write this letter now, or I have to answer this Facebook message right now. And you're not sure, and that's when you check yourself. I was taught in my job, never send an email in anger.
Very true.
And wait for it. Sleep on it. Take it up the next day.
That's why Bill Gates created the drafts folder.
Yes, absolutely.
The drafts folder.
Right. And it's simple. Society is sped up so much that we think we have to act right now, but it's better to wait sometimes.
Yes.
Until
Patience.
you have more information, or you have a better idea, you've slept on it, you have a better idea in the morning how I'm gonna approach this, or if I am.
Are you going to add more? Or you want people to keep talking?
Oh, whatever
talking.
anybody has to say.
I wanted to add something.
Yes, go ahead.
A lot of
Yeah.
times the suffering part is the struggle against the original pain, the denial of the original pain. You know, I got in a car accident, and people say, so they develop, like the anger that we're talking about, that it evolves from there rather than not a happy situation, but it happened. I can't change that, it happened. Now how do I go forward? But it's that struggle against, that denial against the original pain, that we somehow think we can change that in that struggle, but we can't.
Right. And that is about power, accepting powerlessness. To this was pain. This is pain.
This happened, I can't change that happened.
Yep.
But people fundamentally get in that little spot there where they struggle against that, you know, what could I have done different, or should I have done this, or, you know.
Well, I have a little comment to make. I mean, we all have this problem with pain and getting over our suffering, but I am, like, for years and years and years, I've tried to connect to God or whoever you believe in the universe, and I ask for safety all the time. Every time I get in the car, wherever I go, I'm so cautious. I mean, like Kathy says, I drive like this, but I am just asking for God's help all the time, and when I am suffering, I just say, okay, let's just sit on this, pray to God, please help me, and I just shut down, and I used to react. I used to like, oh my goodness, this happened, and my daughter was like, stop reacting, and that's what happens to us. Somebody tries to hurt us, like you've been hurt, you react, you get angry. So now I just pray to God, please help me through this, please show me the way, help me. And also about feeling confident about yourself. I used to write on the mirror, you're beautiful, you're wonderful, you're loved. And I had a massage the other day, and this is how she ended up, you are loved, you are beautiful. And I thought, oh, I've never had a massage like that.
She said the massage was very positive, saying
Yeah,
very
very
positive,
positive.
affirming things.
But sometimes you have to just look outside the problem and say, okay, we're all in this, we all have problems, and there is a light up there that we can be guided by if we just reach out. And it's amazing. It's just, I've had experiences that were just life-changing. So if we just look outside our problems and say, okay, God, please come and help me. He's out there, or something is.
Jeff, is there, or in general, is there room as part of this, the ending of the suffering, to also recognize when a situation is toxic and beyond, like, you know, when you recognize how you react, that you're part of the problem as well. Part of that extra awareness is realizing this is a situation that is non-repairable, and the only way I can move forward is to remove myself from the situation.
Right.
And often it's in relationships, and in this case, you know, there is a person in my life who's been in my life for a very long time. It's my mother-in-law, which is, and I can't help that. I mean, I love my husband, but you know, he comes with baggage, and
He's a person.
and which is a very narcissistic person, and that's with many years of being together, I've had to learn how to deal with. But the moment I decided that I was part of that suffering, you know, the arrows were coming at me in all directions, and I was reacting to them and then throwing them one back, and as soon as I go, hang on, if I stop reacting, I stop fighting, you know, like taking the bait, taking the bait.
This is detached involvement.
Is that-
How
is
you
that
say,
what
how
mean?
you stay involved, and how you operate in a detached manner,
Okay.
so that you're not reactive no matter what comes at you. If you become really skilled at this, the Buddha has a story where people were shooting arrows at him and they all fell short.
Okay.
And that's where it is, where we are not willing anymore because we've learned the lesson.
So you can choose to just walk away. You
You
don't have to.
Yes, absolutely. One of the remedies for my church dilemma is to not drive on that freeway by that building. I actually do go there because I figured out how to transform that energy for me. But if indeed they had continually come at me over past those 15 years that I was with them, I probably would have just gone. I would have acknowledged it. This is tricky, Lynn, isn't it? It's not like denial. It's real. It's a real thing. But where choice comes in is where I suffer or not. I'm in charge of my own suffering and how to eliminate that for me. And sometimes that means that you have to leave things. You have to leave them behind, and you need to replace them with other things instead.
Thank you.
I think it's a good dilemma.
Difference between carry-on and check baggage. Explain that. Explain that, Jeff. Carry-on, you have to be responsible for it at every minute.
Yeah.
Checked, I'll see you when I get there.
It's lovely, isn't it? If you can afford it. Somebody else over here.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. I'm sorry.
Over the years, with the Dharma, learning different strategies, different tools, or picking from the buffet, I've tried many different strategies for dealing with suffering. And sometimes they've worked, sometimes they haven't. I think it's a process of finding different times in your life where you have different problems and how to relate to them. Currently, this too shall pass is what I chant, and I've done different chants over the years. And whenever something comes up, I'll chant, or like whatever it is. And so I think it's ever changing, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But the intention, when I can make the intention, okay, I am intending not to let this take me, and also the reaction right away. I've really learned with the emails or anything to stop. The 3 breaths, the metta, all of that has really made a big difference in my life for not, keeping the suffering going, but putting it aside, taking a breath, sleeping on it, this too knowing in my heart that this too shall pass. And it always does. And then I completely forget about what it was that I was upset about.
Yeah.
It works.
Sharon,
That's a good thing.
there's a change in your demeanor since I first met you.
Oh yeah.
Much
Mhm.
For the
nicer.
better.
No, there is. It's there's a lot less anxiety and tension and fear and you're a much more centered person. The Dharma has helped you with that.
It's
I can
magic.
tell.
The Dharma
I can
works.
tell.
It is.
Somebody out on the benches, comments, questions, if you're out there.
Can they
Matt?
hear anything
Matt.
out there?
What? Go ahead, Matt.
There's something that I could share with you that really kind of fits this lesson.
I can't hear.
It's okay.
Yeah,
Talk up, Matt.
louder.
Can't hear you.
You want our karaoke?
So this is
He's gonna talk loud.
5 years ago, I decided to go in for routine heart surgery. I had a mitral valve leak that was hereditary. My mother had it, my brother had it. They had both gone in and they got it repaired, and they had good results, and they moved on with their life. Unfortunately for me, when I went in, I had a surgeon who even though they had good reviews, they completely botched the surgery, and they were in there way too long, and they damaged my heart. Instead of the 5 to 7 days recovery, I was in the hospital on and off for over 2 months. And now I have a pacemaker. And before all this, it was selective surgery. I knew I had this. I'd had it for a lot of my life, this heart murmur, but it didn't stop me from doing the things I wanted to do. But I had insurance, and I said, people say, do it before you get too old, so you can recover quicker. Yeah, I decided to do this. I went in and did it, and it has drastically changed it. It has changed my quality of life in a bad way. And I went through the pain part, and then I got out of the hospital, and now I just have to check in every 3 or 4 months with the doctors. And the suffering is what I'm going through now. This is an issue I have that is not going away short of a miracle. And
Is it
before I had a
against the
life
guy
of-
who messed it up?
had a lot of
Yes.
Is that the suffering?
a lot of I was a very busy person, adventurous, hardworking. All of these things, I cannot do those 90% of those things anymore. So I'm really, I'm sad and I'm angry that I lost all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I am really upset with the surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
The suffering part, I deal with, every day something reminds me about why I can't do what I used to do. Sometimes it happens many times a day because I try to stay busy and I keep being reminded I don't have the stamina, the strength, etc. that I had before. So sometimes I kind of can get to the point of where I kind of give this surgeon, I forgive the surgeon. Other times when I get reminded of this so many times, so quickly, I get really upset again. So this is not a suffering that's just a pain that's gone away. This is something that I've got to deal with. And I thought, I've been saying, why me? Why did this happen? Because I've heard this surgeon has had many other successful surgeries. It just happened to me. And at first I thought as well, I was always too busy. I should slow down. I was always go, go, go. So, well, by God, I'm slowing down now. But that never really seemed to satisfy. Today, for really kind of the first time, it seems like this is a lesson that I was brought here for. For
Okay.
me
I do have
to
something
really
say.
have to take it by the horns, because it's all in me. I've got to do it, or I'm going to live with this for the rest of my life.
Mac?
Turn it on. Turn it
Oh,
on.
it's not. Mac, we go back to the causes of suffering, and one of them is clinging. And what you really need to let go of, the surgeon doesn't even know you exist probably anymore. In other words, he's not in your, but you need to let go. And that, I think, is that clinging to the blame game. Actually, he did it to you, and you're right, he did. He really messed up, and he messed up your life. But here we get to forgiveness, we get to letting go, and this certainly is not easy. You know, it's difficult, life is difficult, but it can be done as long as you can separate where you're causing your own pain, and just see if you can't detach from that. Let it go.
Question about this. When he compares your physical ability of what you used to be able to do to what he can't do now, is that clinging?
No, the emotion is the clinging to the holding on to the resentment that this happened to you.
No, I thought, as you're saying, you know, thank you, Mac, thank you.
Yeah.
For sharing that.
Oh, very much
that's
so,
very
Matt.
meaningful for us to hear from you. The clinging is, of course, to the storyline that this guy messed up.
Yeah.
And the preoccupation with that, but also clinging to, this is how I used to live. This is how I like to
Yeah,
live.
you lost your life.
There's a clinging piece of that too, and that also causes suffering. That takes you away from the present of what you have the ability to do. All of us in the room are aging. Yeah, I mean, yours is a more dramatic cliff, you know, where something happened. But all of us, I get to the afternoon and I'm beat. Started 5. I used to go from 5 a.m. until 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. sometimes. Never tired when I was younger. Now, by about 1 or 2, I'm like, I think I need a nap.
I have to say that you do a lot of what you always did. You're still adventurous, adventuresome. You still put in tons of work. You're still vital.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's you have to come to that. It's nice to hear from your wife, but that has to be the perspective that you that's your release is to come to those. And the struggle. All of us, I bet you, would go through a similar kind of thing of the anger and the pain and the preoccupation with, hey, I was done wrong. But that is the second arrow that Ruthie's talking about, that we have choice about. What do you think, Mac?
It's just I keep getting reminded of it.
That was right.
Right.
That just happened.
It's the
There's
letting go. Is
accepting a new pace.
letting go, but you all.
Accepting it doesn't really, you know, I know that's the solution to it.
Yeah.
But it's really
Brad.
because it didn't happen.
Thank you, Mac. We all love you.
Yeah.
You know, and it is very, very tough what you've been through. But you're a tough guy. And you can handle all that.
I don't need the microphone.
Oh, you don't need
I just wanted to say in reference to your story, Mac, that you were talking about the process and your evolution of your thought process over this period of time, and I feel like the conversation that happened after that was focused on your process. But I think the very end of what you were saying is that you finally came to this realization that everything is in you, and I want to celebrate that because that's such a huge. That's what we're all here for, and you're doing it.
Yeah.
It's empowering.
Yeah, I really wasn't, I wasn't gonna say it, because it's a personal thing to share with so many
Well,
people.
we
But it
thank you
really
for
today
sharing.
It's the day.
This aha moment just happened today. so-
Wow.
Yeah.
That it was a lesson of some sort. Is that what you're talking about, where it just hit you
Yeah.
today?
Well, I think the lesson is the suffering that it's time to work through it and get this monkey off my back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the suffering is the most really good. Oh. Okay, is anybody else?
Eddie? Eddie?
Where's Eddie?
Right here. Right in front of
There
you.
you are, darling.
I'm all right. It sounds like we're using one word to describe many different realities.
Yes, huge spectrum.
Many different, and to Sharon's point, it seems like we need many different tools in our toolbox to deal with many different realities, and knowing what tool to use. It's kind of like gardening. Do you use your lawnmower to trim your tree, right? And so knowing that you have the tools, or finding the tools if you don't have them, and then use what tools to use to deal with that reality.
Right. Well, think of the causes of suffering. Craving, if that's your problem, if you have an addiction perhaps of, let's say, a drug addiction or alcoholism or whatever, there's a strong mix of pain and suffering there. But you can overcome the pain far more easily than you can overcome the addiction, the suffering from the craving. You can go through withdrawals and come out and you're clean on the other side and you're getting physically healthy, but you carry the suffering of the addiction because it's a habit. Or a major one is clinging, and probably everyone here has something that they cling to that is no longer pertinent or applicable to their lives, and they just haven't let go of it. It's that "He Done Me Wrong" song. People who have been, I know people who play bridge who are fighting about a hand that they had 20 years ago. They are hanging on to a moment in time that is long gone. So if you start applying the Dharma, you can start saying, wait a minute, isn't that, now what Mac has is deadly serious. A bridge game isn't, but people give it almost equal weight sometimes. The other thing is the belief that we are separate. Loneliness. Feeling that other people are smarter than we are, or no, whatever. That we are, this is an ego thing. But that is something else that we can cultivate and get over. And ultimately, every time we end up back in the same place, which are the 4 Brahma Viharas, which are loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, which is unconditional friendship, and equanimity, finding our balance. And so really that old saying, it's a cliche, but love is the answer. And we have to apply it with every tool, is what I'm trying to say. Whichever tool you're using, apply it with love. And then we can get over a lot of the difficulties. Do you want this, honey?
11:13.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Want to do medicine?
Yes, we should.
Okay.
Do you want to?
Do you
Okay.
want to say anything else?
No. I said more than I was able to say to begin with, that's very sure. I came in here going, oh my goodness, going around in circles. Anyway, now we'll do metta. Is everybody here already familiar with?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Metta is loving kindness, just where we were kind of circling around to. It is a guided meditation. And it goes this way. You're going to choose 5 people. The first person is yourself. Next, someone you love very much. Then a neutral person. That's somebody whose name you may not know, in which case you address them as friend, but is somebody you know slightly and you have good feelings for. The fourth person is someone with whom you are in conflict. This can be someone from the past who did something that hurt you very much. This can be just any kind of conflict. And that person is difficult, so you're going to have to do a little breathing. And the fifth person is everyone, every being, everywhere. Okay, so I'm going to say a phrase. You bring the person to mind. I'll say a phrase. You direct that phrase silently to that person. Okay? So starting with yourself, those who are very self-critical, particularly, or self-judgmental, this is for them. To yourself say, may I be well. May no harm come to me. May I live with ease, that's equanimity, calm and peaceful. May I be happy. Now, bring to mind the person you love with all your heart. See their face, say their name, smile at them, and say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. And then you move on to your neutral person. Bring their image to mind and say to them either their name or, dear friend, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. And then as they fade to the rear view mirror, you bring to mind the person with whom you are in conflict. Take a deep breath. Bring their face to mind. And without malice, say to this person, just for this moment, without malice, hopefully forever from this, say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. Another deep breath or two. Let go if you feel any toxicity. And now put your hands over your hearts and bring to mind all sentient beings, all living creatures. 8 billion people on this planet, plus all the pets and the fishies and the dolphins in the deep blue sea, the birds in the sky, all sentient beings. And now we speak a little differently. We say, may all beings everywhere, on this plane and all other planes, we don't know who's out there in space, be well. May all beings everywhere be safe. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering. May all beings everywhere be happy. Now, if we're at home, we can sit for as long as we like and just let this marinate at a cellular level. And then we release our hands, we open our eyes, and for today, we're going to end as we always do with the same wish. This is from the Unitarian Church, and I'm going to say the phrase, and then you say it out loud, and then our session is over. It goes like this. Go in peace.
Go in peace.
Go making peace.
Go making peace.
Living gently.
Living gently.
Loving mightily.
Loving mightily.
And bowing to the mysteries.
And bowing to the mysteries.
Thank you all, and I'll be a little more at home with this machine next week or two.